What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Today, I'm going to talk about The One Ring, 2nd edition. This book's been sitting on my shelf for over a year. My problem was I never had the group to try it. My group wants to stick to very specific types of games, and The One Ring just wasn't it for them. But I read it, and I thought it looked like a lot of fun. And I knew that if I found the right group, that was going to be something I wanted to explore. Well, turns out I did find the right group. You're looking at it.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
I'm going to Mordor alone.
That's right. One Ring 2nd edition has a fantastic solo mode. You don't actually even have to use a generic emulator because they have one that is made specifically for this game. So what is the One Ring? Well, it started out many years ago. I think it was 2007 or 2008 that the 1st edition came out. And it's been out of print for a few years before the 2nd edition got released. Lots of drama involved with that situation, but we're not going to get into that. We're going to talk about the mechanics, we're going to talk about what the focus is, and we're going to talk about how you can get into the One Ring. So, the One Ring is a very story-driven but procedurally officiated game that is based in Eriador. So the area where the Shire is in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and series. And it has a mechanic that is very unique. It uses a target number, but it uses a 12-sided die and then a series of 6-sided dice. We'll get into all of that later. But suffice it to say, the One Ring has a very specific way of playing out that is focused on recreating the types of experiences that you saw play out in the classic Tolkien stories. So while this system wouldn't work for a standard swords and sorcery type of play, it works perfectly for a Tolkien low magic high fantasy game, and it really pays homage to the classic works in the way that the game is laid out and the way that the game plays. So now we're going to go over to the table and I'm going to talk to you about the One Ring.
One ring to rule them all.
One ring to find them,
One ring to bring them all.
and in the darkness bind them.
All right, let's start off by talking about the core mechanic of the One Ring 2nd edition. How do you get things done? So this is my character sheet for my solo hero, Otar. Otar's a ranger of the north. And if I wanted to, say, swing his sword, I would look at his sword skill, which has 3 dots in it, and I would take 3 6-sided dice, also called success dice in this system, and I would take a feat die, because you always roll a feat die. I will note that this particular feat die is misprinted. This says 11, that should say 1. Because this die goes 1 to 10, then it has a symbol of Gandalf, which is an automatic success, and an Eye of Sauron, which is an automatic failure. So I would roll my 3 success dice plus my 12-sided die. So this counts as a 1. Remember, it was misprinted. I got a 6, a 4, a 1, and a 1. So 10, 11, 12. And I would compare that to my target number for strength, which is going to be an 11. So I got a high enough roll that I was successful with swinging my sword. Now you'll notice that the 6 on these special success dice have a little elven T symbol here. That adds an additional success effect for each one of those that you get as long as you meet your target number. Anything that I do in the strength realm is going to have the same target number. So the difficulty checks are not hidden from the player. You can see immediately that you're going to need to roll an 11 on anything strength related, and then you just roll the amount of dice equal to your skill in whatever you're doing. Same thing for heart, same thing for wits. They have separate target numbers, all visible to the player. With this extra success symbol, this elvish T, I can get additional effects like extra damage or possibly bypassing armor, so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into great detail on the way that the combat system works, but it uses the same system as the skills as far as getting the success, but you also check to see if your particular blow is a piercing blow, meaning that it bypasses the armor, and then you check to see if the attack wounds. And in the event that it does wound, you probably kill the enemy in one hit, unless it's a more powerful enemy. Okay, so we've talked briefly about the core mechanic. Now I want to talk about the core phases. Now, in this gorgeous beast of a book, you will find that there are two primary phases in the One Ring. There is the adventure phase, broken down into journeys, combats, and councils, governing the trip, the fight, and the talking. And there is also the fellowship phase, which is going to be similar to the downtime phase in Mouse Guard, in which your characters will develop, grow, and research future adventures. Now, combat is going to lack some of the precision of a more standard D&D type combat, because it's going to be less about actual places on a map and more about cinematic feel. Combat is going to be based upon your stance, not your position. Your stance can be forward, it can be open, it can be defensive, or it can be rearward. Whenever you're playing solo, there's an additional stance called skirmish, but we'll get into that later. I mentioned earlier that there was a dedicated solo mode for this game. The nice thing about this is it is actually designed specifically by and for the folks that created the game. This is going to be the Strider mode. It is available in a PDF. I, of course, have mine printed because I am addicted to paper. And it is a very short document. I believe there's 28 pages. There are very few changes to the core rules. This one will actually add the skirmish stance. It does make your starting character a little bit more powerful, and it changes a few of the tables, which are all compiled at the back of the document. And whenever you play the game, you could have basically this little kit here, some dice and a character sheet, and have what you need to play. Now with mine, I've also printed the errata, and I've printed the sections from the core rulebook on combat, on councils, on journeys, and the bestiary. So that if I am on the road and I wanted to take a journey through Middle-earth on my own, I can easily do so with this slim book here. Now, I also have a laminated copy of the Magical Treasure Index, because in the One Ring, you're going to be responsible for creating your own treasure tables, so you'll want to have that ready ahead of time, which I have right here. And I have a laminated copy of the journey log. But with just what's here, plus my character sheet, I actually have everything that I need to play a game of the One Ring solo. Now, the Strider mode is particularly effective at what it's trying to set out to do, because it doesn't try to depart greatly from the original source material for the regular multiplayer One Ring. It makes slight adjustments, nips and tucks here, so that you can have a very similar experience to what you would have if you played with a full group. And I think that is a great design goal for any solo system. And one thing that could be seen as either a pro or a con, depending upon where you sit, is the relatively small product line that's out there for the game right now. There is the starter set, which is an excellent purchase as it includes some handy cards. It's got some nice little placards that show the stances, and on the flip side, they have the different roles for the journey phase. It's got a set of dice, and then it's got a simplified version of the rules and some adventures and a nice map and some pre-made characters. Now, one thing that might be a turnoff for you with this is that it does not include any character creation rules, and the adventures are all focused on hobbits. So there's not a lot of combat. It's very much a storytelling type of situation for the adventures in here. There is some combat, but you're not warriors, you're just hobbits. Now, you can also get another set of dice separate from the starter set. My starter set had the misprinted dice, and the dice I ordered separately also had the misprinted dice, but that's not too hard to get around. You can also play with regular dice, just using the 11 and 12 as the symbol of Sauron and Gandalf, respectively. Then there is the core rulebook, which is a beautiful tome. It uses heavy paper, it's got really nice end papers, and it reads fairly well. Not as good as some of the more modern layouts, but very usable and a good read. After that, we also have The Ruins of the Lost Realm. This is a more recent release. This actually has some specifics on Tharbad and 12 locations in Eriador that you can use for your adventures. It is the same beautiful pages, heavy stock paper and artwork that you will find in the core rulebook, and it has some great opportunities for gameplay, especially if you're going to be playing solo, as the locations being pre-built will help add a little bit of surprise factor. Additionally, it has a very nice map of Tharbad. After that, we have the One Ring Loremaster screen, which also comes with this little Rivendell expansion, which allows you to also play the Elves of Rivendell as player characters. The screen itself has the yellowed page effect that you would find in the books, and it is very sturdy made, just like all of the Free League screens are. The last thing in the line is the PDF of Strider Mode, which you can pick up on DriveThruRPG for $5. And that is everything that's been released for the second edition of the One Ring. As I understand it, the first edition is very similar, so it's probably easily compatible, but it also hasn't been in print for a while, so some of the stuff in there can get quite expensive. One thing I would suggest is picking up the Complete Tolkien Companion or something similar. I got this for $15 off of Amazon, and this has information about everything Tolkien. This helps if you're going to be playing solo, as you can get a little bit of backstory on some of the areas that you're going to be exploring. Okay, and now I am going to review the product using my new scoring system that I am calling 3 Bs, 5 Ps. So, the first P is going to be presentation. This is going to be the layout, the art, the font, all of that kind of thing. And for this, I am going to give the One Ring a presentation is really nice on this. I'm giving it a 17. I like the way that the font looks. I like the yellowed pages. I love the art. The only thing that holds this back from being a little bit better is that the layout is sometimes a little bit confusing, leading to some page flipping, and some of the ways that they have chosen to organize things makes the actual first read through a little more difficult than it needed to be for this game. Second P is going to be production. That's going to be the quality of the actual physical product that I have in front of me. And for that, I give this a 19. The cover itself has a little bit of a texture to it. It is Smith sewn with a ribbon. The paper is a very heavy quality, and I experienced no bleed through on the pages for my copy. The end papers were awesome, and the book overall is just incredibly well constructed. One of the best. The third P of my grading scale is playability. How does this game play at the table, and does it work in practice as well as it does in theory? I give this a 17, only because the game itself works incredibly well, but learning it initially takes a little more time than it should because it's filled with jargon and it doesn't convey that information particularly well. It required a few read-throughs for me to really fully grasp the concepts behind the game. It introduces things to the lexicon without it first explaining what they mean or how they are relevant. Other than that, once you get it down, it plays great, so 17 is what I gave. And the fourth P of my scale is going to be place. This is going to be the setting, the theme, the feel of the game. For this, I'm giving the One Ring 2nd Edition a natural 20. They really nail the Middle-earth feel. It is very clear that the folks that made this game actually care about and have respect for the material that it is based upon. Awesome. Top of class. The final section of 3Bs, 5Ps is going to be the pluses. These are going to be all the intangibles and the things that make this game different than the rest. For this, I'm giving the One Ring a 16. It has a very small product line at this point, and it's been out for a couple of years, but what they have put out has all been excellent, and the dedicated solo experience really bumps it up here for me. So while this score is actually fairly high, considering the small line, I think it's warranted based on the quality of what is actually out there, combined with the massive amount of source material that can give inspiration based on this world. So that gives our overall score for the One Ring 2nd Edition, 89. I think the One Ring 2nd Edition is a great addition to your role-playing game collection. If you can find a full group that is really into the Tolkien source material and is willing to expand their horizons a little bit beyond Dungeons and Dragons, then the One Ring is going to be a great fit. It emphasizes a lot more role-playing and not as much combat as most modern RPGs, and it's going to be just different enough to really portray the feel of Middle-earth in your sessions. So this has been my One Ring review. This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. If you like the content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, good gaming, and God bless.